Hey Lennies and bunny lovers, welcome back to the channel. Lorelai here. Today I wanted to make a little bit of a different video. As you guys know, I really value transparency on this channel. So I'm gonna get a little personal with you here, and I'm gonna talk about the biggest rabbit mistakes that I've made. Because I do preach a lot on this channel, but I also like to make sure that I'm coupling that preaching with real life events and anecdotes of why you should or shouldn't be doing certain things with your rabbit. I also think that it's important to remind you all that we're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Lennon's not perfect. And I've definitely made some very embarrassing and regretful mistakes with her. My hope is to share these anecdotes with you all so that you don't make the same mistakes and that you can learn from my mistakes just as I've learned from them. And hopefully it saves a bunny life. And I'm definitely opening myself up to a lot of judgment here. Like, I'm really putting myself at risk of not wanting to read the comments. I also want to make the disclaimer that I'm not exonerating myself or making excuses for some of the things that have happened to Lennon, and I don't think you should try to imitate some of the stories that you're going to hear. Before we get into this, please smash the like button, subscribe, and hit the bell for unlimited bunny content. Let's hop right into this. So the first big mistake that I made with Lennon was I purchased her impulsively without any education or research or knowledge. I am the literal example of someone who just bought a bunny, took the bunny home, didn't know what I was doing, and then wanted to get rid of her. It's not something I'm proud of, and many of you already know this story of how Lennon and I came to be, so I will link that in the iCard above if you have not watched our video on that. That is one of the reasons I started this channel, because of that journey with Lennon. I didn't know that you could adopt bunnies, that you could go to the shelter. I didn't know that there was a mass abandonment problem. That was the first mistake I made, but I just want to clarify that actually getting Lennon was not a mistake. It was just the buying itself. It was the process that was a mistake. Lennon is anything but a mistake in my life. The next mistake that I made, and it's one of the worst infractions that I constantly talk about, is, drum roll, I kept Lennon in a cage. It was like this tiny little wire-bottomed bird cage that the seller gave to me when I purchased her. It looked like this, basically. It was so small, you guys. Like, I don't think any animal could like live in that, to be honest. I'm not even sure why those cages are made. I mean, to be fair, she was like 6 weeks old and could fit in the palm of my hand, but it's still not an excuse. Like, she definitely grew out of it really, really fast. And then I transitioned her to this DIY cage that I created, basically with like NIC grids, because that was the thing to do at the time. I thought it was like super ingenious and handy, like making my own cage. It was like not a sustainable cage at all. It was just really weak, and Lennon would find ways to escape every time. Like, I'd come home and the cage would be collapsed and she'd be missing, and that was basically when I decided, okay, this cage thing, it's not working for either of us. So we're gonna have to figure out something else. And that's when I transitioned to free roaming. It's funny how that little bird cage, it just changed the lives of millions of bunnies to come. You know, it's just funny how life works. In the midst of all that, my next infraction was that Lennon drank out of a water bottle. Like, I literally did all of the top 10 mistakes that you could make with a bunny. She had a hay feeder, like crappy food, all that stuff. The next mistake I made was I was horrible at bunny proofing. Like, I kid you not, I had cords and stuff dangling everywhere. I think I went through at least 6 different MacBook Pro chargers in 1 year. Like, she just murdered all of my cables for the longest time. So the next mistake, and this one's really embarrassing, and it's not a story that I'm proud to tell, but it's an important story because I think that it really illustrates the dangers of, you know, predators and prey together. But basically, I took Lennon to UCLA one day. As you guys know, that's where I went to college. It's a beautiful campus. There's a lot of lush greenery, just great place to sit down on the grass and relax. Great place for photos for Lennon. And I find this great spot to sit on the grass with her. She's got her harness and her leash, and I'm on cloud 9. She's looking super cute. The birds are chirping. Like, what could possibly go wrong? And then I kid you guys not, all of a sudden, I'm completely caught off guard. This ginormous dog, comes charging at us. And it was just like, you don't have a lot of time to think in that moment because it happened so fast. Like, it started off real small in the distance, and then you could just see it getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're like, that's not coming toward us, is it? And then all of a sudden the dog is just right there, and it is like lunging at Lennon, leaping in the air, and Lennon's leaping in the air, and this dog has its mouth wide open like it is about to swallow Lennon whole. I had to choose between two things. I either tug on Lennon's leash so hard to get her away from this dog, but I risk potentially snapping her spine in half. Or I let the leash go, but there's a risk that I may never see her again because she's gonna run away. And in that moment, I decided to let the leash go because I thought, you know what, it's better than her getting mauled by this dog or me breaking her back. And I let the leash go. And she bolted. She ran off, just like I predicted. And I lost sight of her. She was gone. And the owner of this dog finally catches up, right? And he's just like, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm just like, what? This is not a leash-free zone. Why isn't your dog on a leash? Like, I went off on him. And by the way, this is a very public scene. Like, people are staring. Everybody feels really sorry for me. They're just like, oh, you know? And I just run off. I'm looking for Lennon left and right. It's like, Lennon! Just like weeping, you know? And I finally find her, and she was behind a tree. And she was just curled up there. And I just grabbed her and I just pressed her up against my chest. And I pleaded for forgiveness. I couldn't stop saying, I'm so sorry, Lennon, I'm so sorry. It was horrible. But it was a lesson learned, to say the least, you know? I think it's a real testament to the dangers of the outdoors for rabbits. And also how you can think sometimes that you're in control and that you're in a safe place. But the truth is that anything could go wrong. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. You know, I'm still not a believer in keeping your bunnies in Tupperware and never letting them see the light of day. I still go on outings with Lennon sometimes. It's rare. But when I do, we take extra precautions, like precautions that I didn't used to take. We have a stroller now, which is really nice, and it provides a lot of safety and security for us. I don't let her run loose. So I'm not gonna sit here and tell you guys like, oh, don't ever take your bunnies out, or you should take your bunnies out. That's just never been part of my platform to preach those things. My platform has always been become an expert in your bunny. Don't become an expert in rabbit care. Become an expert in your bunny and what your bunny is like. It could happen to you. And I'm so lucky that Lennon walked away unscathed from that, because it could have gone so much worse. It really could have. The next mistake that I made was Lennon getting attacked by another rabbit. And I made a full video on that story, so I'll link that in the iCard, but I took Lennon to a Hoppy hour that was just a pretty poorly run Hoppy hour. I have nothing against Hoppy hours. Like, I think they're cute. I think if they're done safely and correctly, it can be great. But this was just like a happy hour where like you could not be with your rabbit in the pen. You had to be outside of the pen, and like there was just a lot of people, a lot of noise. The people who were supervising, in my opinion, didn't do a good job, obviously, because they totally overlooked Lennon getting attacked. But, you know, that's a lesson learned. I think it was a lesson learned for me and the organization. This is no hate at all on that organization. Like, I really respect any rabbit rescue or rabbit advocacy group out there. I just think that was like, it was a conglomerate of a lot of things that resulted in just a bad hobby hour. That's all. But Lennon, you know, got attacked by a rabbit that was very aggressive. The rabbit like bit like a little piece of her ear off. She was bleeding and everything. I was like totally traumatized. I was like crying the whole time. Cried all the way home. Thank God Lennon healed up really nicely, but I'm so careful about the rabbits that I put her around now. The next mistake I made was just dropping $500 on an ER visit that did not need to be an ER visit because I was scared. But basically, she had cataracts and I didn't know they were cataracts. I just saw like cloudiness in her eye, and I took her to the ER, and of course they like price gouged me for something that I could have like figured out on my own. But thankfully I made that video and I put it out there for you guys so you know not to do the same thing. Okay, so that's it for this video, you guys. I feel like I really put myself out there with this one, and I hope that you guys have learned from it a little bit. Also, just a reminder that nobody's perfect, and to this day, I feel like I make mistakes with Lennon, but they're a lot less serious than they used to be. I'm so lucky that Lennon has survived all of my craziness. She's a real trooper. She is. She's such a great bunny. My question of the day to you guys is, what has been your biggest rabbit mistake? I am curious. Maybe we can all console each other and make each other feel better. Comment down below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell and all that jazz, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.